This is day one, and I just want to say cheers! Bought Iman Gadzi's Educate program, and I am learning sales. Guess what? I got the job, and now I am essentially working my dream job with my mentor that I've looked up to since the beginning of sales. This week I did practically $500 in sales. It's not a lot, but it's a start. Like, if I look back at the beginning of this year, I get scared about the journey, and I was scared of what it entailed, but I was just starting, and I had no clue what I was gonna do. I think I'm also at like 6 or 7K this month. Doesn't even feel like real life. Since my first video, I have done $2.5 million in revenue for the companies I've worked for. I've grown to about 40,000 followers on Instagram. I now work full-time for myself, and I am traveling everywhere and living the best life that I could. In 2023, I quit my full-time job as a barista, dropped out of college, and went all in on sales. In that same year, in just 10 months, I was able to make 3x the amount of income as I would as a nurse. My name is Madison DeCoste, and this is my story. When I started out in high school, I genuinely thought I had my life figured out. I already was working towards my nursing degree. I was dedicating my life to medicine, and I genuinely thought I had everything laid out. And so when I graduated high school, I naturally went to school for medicine. I was going to school for nursing with a pre-med minor, and I thought this was the safest route for me. Ever since I was in high school, I was sold the idea of going to school as a doctor, not only because I wanted to help people, but because it was the safest route for me. It was the best route. I got to go to school, have a secure job, work all of these hours, but most importantly, help people along the way and make money. When it came to the overall experience though, the only downside of becoming a doctor was I had to go to school for 4 years and then 4 years after that. And so ultimately my goal was that, but it would take me at least 12 years to actually start making an income. That was something I could really live off of, but most importantly, it would take a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of work. Alongside all of that process, I landed my first job as a nurse, and I can't even explain to you how excited I was. I was finally getting my teeth in the game where I got to help people, but most importantly, I got to work one-on-one with a lot of the patients. And I did that roughly for 4 to 5 months until I had a really bad encounter with one of the nurses. My expectations were genuinely dropped. I was doing this because I wanted to help people, and I was doing this because I loved the idea of medicine and bettering myself. But after those few months of having the job, I started to genuinely hate going to work. I was working 12-hour shifts. I was being yelled at almost every single day by my elders. I remember asking a question and I got yelled at and I was crying just because I wanted to genuinely understand a patient, but apparently my question wasn't good enough. And then I started to look at the people that were in the nursing career for 20 years plus. They were all tired. They were all burnt out. They had so many health problems. They were dedicating their life to something where most of the times they were let go because they were overstaffed. It was a moment where all it took was one thing going wrong in their career and everything was taken away from them. I felt like my life was meant more for, and genuinely, I had no desire to be in their shoes. And then I came to the realization that I'm spending all of this time working towards someone else's dream. I spent all of this time helping people get better, which I love to do, but it wasn't actually making a difference in their life. I was taking care of these people, but I wasn't even taking care of myself. So I asked myself, why am I not doing this for myself? Alongside that process, while I was in school, still working as a barista, I met somebody who was in sales. Met somebody in the space who was living a life that I genuinely was envious of. They got to travel all around the world. They're making $10,000, $20,000 plus per month. They had a life where they had ultimate freedom, the ultimate freedom of choice. And so with getting a little bit of a taste of this experience, with hanging out with them, I started to do my research on what actually remote high-ticket sales was. And with getting this experience, I had this inner drive, inner hunger, because it was working towards something that I genuinely could obtain. And I couldn't be let go just like that. As I started to learn more and more, the hunger started to really start to fill me. And I decided, you know what, why not just give this a shot? I genuinely have nothing to lose. I first started in November of 2023. I taught myself and I landed a role within the first month, a role where I didn't really know what to expect. And with learning for months and months and months on end, I realized I wasn't really getting anywhere with my sales skills. I was just churning and churning and churning people, and I couldn't understand or really understand the process of what does it mean to sell somebody. I always got the expectation of you had to be a sleazy car salesman. You had to be this particular tough person, but most importantly, you had to use these fancy sales tactics that I genuinely didn't understand. Sales felt so unattainable to me. I genuinely thought I was gonna give up until I discovered this thing called permission-based selling. It was a type of sales that I'd never heard before. It was a type of sales I never really heard anybody talk about. And I realized I could do the same exact thing as all of the people that were traditionally selling sales, but make it better and make even more money than honestly, they were. But the craziest thing about permission-based selling, I got to be me. I didn't have to be this certain person. I didn't have to be cold. I didn't have to be this really tough macho person. I could genuinely show up as myself and the most authentic version of it. What this permission-based selling was not a type of sales where you're pushing products down somebody's throat. It's not where you using these fancy Jedi mind tricks to make the person and convince them to buy. You're not planting seeds in their head. What permission-based selling is where you're genuinely talking talking 20% of the time, the lead's talking 80%, and you're just asking them questions. And so all you're doing is just asking questions and the lead's doing the work for you. And with learning more about the sales, I realized I could make a lot more money. Not because I was using these fancy techniques to get over the line, because the lead trusted me more. They saw me as a person, genuinely caring about them. And all it was I had this basic framework of what types of questions to ask, how to ask it, and I was able to close way more deals than I was learning traditional sales. So I asked myself, why would I continue to go down the route of nursing? Why not go all in on this thing when I could be making more money in a quicker amount of time than I ever could with my nursing degree? And so I decided to quit my job, leave college, and give sales a serious try. Within my first month, I got my first sales role. I genuinely had no idea what to expect. I found this guy on social media, I outreached to him, I was like, hey, I have really no sales experience, but I'd love to work for you. And he gave me the job. And I was like, oh, all right, cool. This is easy. This is awesome. But when I first started out, I had a little bit of imposter syndrome because quite literally, this was the first time that I was doing sales. I had taught myself in the beginning stages. I didn't really know what I was doing. He was having me close his deals for social media marketing, and I had no clue what that was at the time. But as I persisted, as I started to grow, as I started to learn, I started to develop my skills a little bit more, quite a lot more. As I started to get more into the space, I started to realize how much of a cheat code learning sales is. It's not just selling a product or service one-off, one-on-one with somebody. It's way more than that. Your relationship with your boyfriend, you get to communicate with him so you guys don't have fights as often. If your friends want to go to a restaurant you really don't want to go to, you know how to negotiate with them to go to the restaurant you want to. You have the ability to negotiate a better life, negotiate that car that you want, get it down to a payment you want to have it at. Genuinely, everything in life is sales, and learning it was a complete cheat code. And as I started to rinse and repeat the process over and over again, I started to realize more and more how easy learning sales was and how much more it was benefiting my life. Now, fast forward a year down the line, I went from making $30,000 a year as a barista to making over $10,000 a month as a sales rep, all by learning this one skill. And just within 1 year, 6 figures into the green, I paid off my sales training, and now I'm living a life of freedom. Every single day I get to wake up and choose what I get to do, all while making a lot more money, and I don't have to worry about losing my job like that. I get to live a life of freedom where I get to support my family, where I get to support my friends, be able to give them the life that they want to live because I grew a skill that nobody can take away from me. And I was able to get there because I was able to take calls where I'd get 10% or 5% of the overall commission. So for every $3,000 deal that I closed, I'd get $300. And especially if you landed a high ticket offer where you're selling something $10,000 plus, for every single call for only an hour that I was taking home over $1,000. All I got to do was I had leads come to me where I was taking leads that were already ready to buy, and I got to converse with them, talk to them, already doing something that I loved, and especially talking about something that I loved so deeply. And now with me selling an offer that I genuinely loved, my work-life balance was absolutely insane and amazing. Genuinely, I got to work out at 4 in the afternoon if I wanted to. In the middle of the day, if I wanted to go to lunch, I could. And this would look so different compared to my life as a nurse, where I'd have to work all these crazy hours and not get to do what I genuinely wanted to do. And it honestly made my life so much better. Not because it was making me a better sales rep, I was developing out professionally, but I was excelling exponentially personally, where I sought to become the best version of myself. But out of this whole experience, the thing that I would say saved me the most when it came to sales, I got to spend time with my friends and family. I got to hang out with my mom whenever I wanted to. I got to bring her out to dinner. I got to fly all around the country with all of my friends, going on crazy vacations, working from anywhere in the world. Wherever I was working, I was on vacation at the same time, and I loved what I was doing, so it never felt like I was working a day in my life. And I know that sounds so cheesy, but genuinely, sales saved my life. If you feel like any of this resonated with you, if you feel like you're in the 9-to-5 job, you're looking for a change, an exciting way to start living your life, where you feel like you can start working on something that really feels like you're working towards something great, click the link in the description, and I'll see you in the next video.